Yeah, I gotta figure it out. I gotta figure it out. I'll come up with a cool idea. But in any case, man, it is a pleasure to be chatting with you. I know the game's starting, so I can go into kind of recording mode. But for anybody that doesn't know, I am currently sitting in a call with Indiebear, who is it fair? I mean, maybe you would be biased, but is it fair to call you like the number one support in the game? I mean, your team is like the most winningest team in the game right now, right? That's a correct way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the title head on, number one support in the game.
I mean, I just think like, I mean,
Yeah,
not just to bolster you up, but I think it's like in terms of actual tournament performances, like that's got to be the most accurate way of framing it.
yeah, I would say so. I think we're like our tournament record's like 21-6 after our loss today. So, my team or me, we've held the rank one on the ladder for the longest.
Yeah,
So, I think that'd be a fair description.
that's pretty awesome. So I'm gonna go into this. The reason why I like doing interview stuff, and I never really get to dive into it as much as I'd like to, sir. I should put a little bit more initiative, is because the thing about the competitive side of games is that there's not usually great player representation. It's kind of like you see the teams, you see what they can do, but you don't really hear from them too much. So, give me the TLDR. Like, who are you, man? Like, who are you out in the world, and in regards to gaming? Who is Indie Bear?
Yeah, been playing MOBAs pretty much my entire gaming life. Started about 10 years ago, picked up Dota 2. Gave that about 10,000 hours, a solid 10K hours. Tried my best to be competitive there, but unfortunately, I just wasn't good enough. Swapped over to Heroes of the Storm, where I met a bunch of my friends who are my teammates now. Like Goof, everyone on my team we met in Heroes of the Storm. We're all high-rated players there. Some of us were competitors. I wasn't. I was a coach slash manager. Um, and now I've been living the life of Pokemon Unite. I don't know if I'd call myself a Pokemon Unite pro player. There isn't much of a pro scene, but
Yeah.
I'd say the closest thing to a pro player right now is what me and my teammates are doing. Some of the
Yeah,
rest of the scene.
I think that's a grounded perspective to have. I understand the point of not necessarily throwing out the word pro just yet, but so ironically enough, I actually how early on were you involved in like competitive Heroes of the Storm? Was it like pretty early, or was it like like HGC days and stuff?
I probably started around HGC days.
Okay.
I played in the alpha for fun, didn't really take it seriously, quit the game for a little bit and came back. And at that point, I was just grinding out on the ladder. I wanted to be the best that I could. I was actually the first person in Heroes of the Storm globally to hit top 10 on the ladder playing 100% support. So I've been playing
Nice.
support in every game. HOTS, I was literally 100% support.
So
To the
how
point
does that
where
how does that like identity fall upon you? Like I know like you're 100% support. It's definitely like something that you're interested in. Like what's the mindset behind like I just want to be the support?
I think, well, I started off playing support in Dota because my friends didn't want to play it and we needed someone to do it, so I just did it. And I realized that it's a role that people normally attribute with, like, we're gonna hide the worst player on support, and we're not. It's like a role that isn't very well optimized. Not everyone takes it very seriously. Um, and I just wanted to be the person that did that. I wanted to min-max support. I wanted to be the best support out there. And I really enjoy that perspective. Like, for me, when I'm playing team fights, I'm normally looking at both my teammates and the enemy team and where I'm positioning, and I have a different kind of mindset as to playing other roles. And I think it's really important for anyone that wants to be a good support player is that kind of have to change the perspective you have on the game.
And what kind of a role would you say you take inside the team? Because I know, like in the past, or just like historically speaking, I've known that there's a lot of shot callers for like competitive MOBA teams that tend to lean into the support role. You kind of have a position, and maybe you'll agree or disagree with me. I'm interested, where you see a lot, right? Like you're very team fight oriented. You're very like you kind of are constantly looking at every little bit of the fight. Whereas it's a lot easier to kind of like tunnel vision or focus in on doing damage or executing a certain target when you play a different role. So what kind of a role do you feel like you play for your team in terms of like communication?
I'd say I'm pretty fortunate to have a group of teammates that are all knowledgeable in the game and they don't really require a lot of babysitting in terms of where to be on the map. Our team doesn't have so much of a shot caller, but you are right in that my role is very focused around gaining vision. And it's an important thing in Pokemon Unite. Unlike other MOBAs, there aren't wards in this game that give you vision without your positioning actually being um in the middle of the map. So what I'll go out and do is I'll go out and get vision physically. I'll move around and I'll relay that to my team, and together we'll kind of make decisions on how we want to approach the game and what decisions we want to make.
Cool. So one thing that I feel like a lot of people maybe not even realize this, especially within Unite community specifically, because it's just such a unique and interesting game, is that I find this game really fascinating because, Timmy and, Pokemon Company found a way to take the MOBA genre many, many years post the kind of like boom of the genre, and they took the formula and they twisted it on its head and really made their own MOBA. Like, how do you feel about the way that this game operates? Because it's very, non-traditional, no towers, no lane minions. It's all about this scoring, and it's very, very unique. And I feel like even now I run into, people in the community or people who I get comments from that ask questions related to other MOBAs, and they don't actually realize that this game is incredibly unique in terms of like executing the objective. So what do you think about the whole Unite formula in terms of the MOBA genre?
I think they did a great job. They kind of follow the footsteps of Heroes of the Storm, because Dota and League of Legends had a very traditional formula with items and farming gold in lane and using the gold to purchase items and gaining an experience advantage and snowballing from there. Here's a Storm changed it up to have global experience, no gold. And then I think Unite, Timmy, they took the approach one step further and decided that they wanted to get rid of the lane minions, which I think was a great decision. The towers being goal points that you score in, I think it's very interesting. I really enjoy all the differences that they have. But that being said, I think some experienced MOBA players might not even realize how similar this game is to other MOBAs in the way that the lanes work. I'll give you one like really easy example. In Dota, there's this concept, or there used to be, at least when I played, that you don't want to push down towers too early because it'll set the lane minions back further in the lane and it makes it easier to farm. And somehow they managed to accomplish that same exact concept, but with how the Audinos work. So one thing you'll notice our team and other competitive teams do is we're really hesitant on breaking the top tower right away, because if you do, you give access to those Audinos in that safe farm. And that's a mechanic that's existed in Dota for 15 years almost. So I don't know if they did it on purpose or if it was on accident or what it was, but they've done an amazing job capturing some classic MOBA mechanics.
Yeah, and now in terms of capturing the MOBA mechanics or just the MOBA experience in general, what are your thoughts what were your thoughts and what are your thoughts currently going into this game thinking, okay, I'm about to play a MOBA, but I'm about to play it on a controller?
I was terrified. I'm gonna be honest. I have never played a game seriously on a controller. Stopped playing console games probably after the Wii was released. And at the most I was playing on the Wii was like Wii Sports and whatnot. So my mechanics on a controller were very, very bad. And there was a large learning curve for me. But after playing, for 2 months straight, 3 months straight even now, I don't think it's that bad. I think they did a pretty good job on making the controls feel user-friendly to a point where it's accessible to new players. But at the same time, I feel like every day I'm getting better with my controls to a point where I can influence the game with my mechanics, despite the game being pretty mechanically simple to begin with.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's actually really interesting because you're saying a lot of the things that I would agree with. Me coming from past MOBAs, it's like, okay, what can you expect with this game? And then you play it and you're like, oh wow, they actually hit a lot. It is very HOTS-esque in the the talent versus like what ability build do you want to go for yourself. So there's kind of these multiple play styles per champion as opposed to just one champion playing the same. They changed the formula, but they still captured some of that kind of traditional MOBA feel. And then the controls, yeah, I agree. I play the game on controller, and I think to myself, like, I don't know how this is going to work well. And the next thing you know, it feels pretty good. And I feel like, yeah, I can actually take this pretty seriously. And it's just something I really enjoy to do. So let's touch on some things that are a little bit more specific. How has your personal experience with just like grinding the game been, like playing the ranked ladder, playing and getting invested in the competitive scene and in the tournament scene? What has the overall feel been for you? And then I guess to take it a step further, what are some of the things that you're most excited about or most hopeful will like come to the game, I suppose?
So to answer the first part of your question, I think, and this will lean into what I'm hopeful for as well, is that I'm really happy with the like the tournament scene. You know, I want it to grow and I want it to be bigger, but playing 5 versus 5 matches in organized games is some of the most fun I've had in a MOBA probably ever. I think the teamwork aspect that comes into the game, the combination of mechanics and macro gameplay is really, really fun. Um, all that being said, I think the solo queue ladder is really rough. I think if you're a solo queue player and you don't have friends to play with right now, once you start getting to like mid-master tier, the game becomes really rough, and it becomes difficult to even like strive to improve when the game is so fundamentally different in solo queue. I think a part of that, the problem is that the game is really new and the player base isn't caught up yet on how the game operates at the highest level, and that'll come with time. I think some of it requires some matchmaking fixes from the developers' end as well. So hopefully we'll see some of that. And what I'm most hopeful for is just a straight solo queue ladder. Maybe solo and duo queue.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll incentivize higher rated players like, you know, me and my teammates to solo queue more often. And that stuff's gonna come from the top down. If we have a way that we can reliably solo queue, I'm pretty sure most of my teammates, at least I can speak for myself, we'd be playing like at least 6-7 hours of solo queue a day.
Yeah, I think that
so much fun.
I think that solo queue is good for the community. It's good for the game. Also, if you want to, feel free to queue up for another one. I could keep this going. So I think solo queue is good for the game, good for the community. I think an important thing for people to know is that the minority of players, in my experience, tend to be the full teams, and so it would be really healthy for the game to have a healthy solo queue or solo duo queue ladder. It also provides a lot of content, you know, so that's pretty good, you know, because you can stream your solo queue experience and things like that, and you know, it just adds for a good experience. So in general, what kind of future do you see for this game competitively? Like you really did get a bot game.
Yeah.
No, it's cool, whatever, dude, just play. We'll use it for footage, it's fine. What kind of future do you see for the game competitively, or like what are you hopeful for? I don't know if you've paid attention recently, but Pokemon Go actually, I'm gonna misquote this, so forgive me. Pokemon Go recently got like pulled into their kind of like Pokemon Company tournament thing series. I really don't know much about it, so I hate that I'm misquoting this. But they also recently announced that it's going to be a part of like a tournament series for Twitch Rivals. So what do you think about like Pokemon Go, the involvement of Pokemon Company and esports in general, like, or how they run esports, and then maybe the involvement of Unite?
I think historically people have been mostly unhappy with either it's Nintendo or the Pokemon Company's involvement in esports. I think they're making good strides now compared to how things might have been in the past. I think it's exciting. You know, I always want to play in a competitive format that's supported by the developers of the game. I think it helps the game grow, and I think it has the best chance for longevity in the game. So I'm hopeful, but I'm worried as well at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because the rhetoric that kind of spins around when it comes to competitive and Nintendo is not good, right? Like, I think everybody can agree and understand that. And I don't have a lot of context with Smash or anything like that, but I do know that the general sentiment is that like, oh, you know, Nintendo doesn't really support competitive. But my perspective has been, I've seen this game since the beginning. I started playing during the Japanese beta pretty much right before launch, and I noticed, I was like, okay, the game has ranked built in. The game has a global leaderboard. The game has a working spectator mode. I was like, there's no way they don't make this game competitive, right? Like, it just seems like that's so much work that they did before the game even launched to not have a competitive game. So I'm really interested to see if and when they start pushing it. On top of that, they did like the official like Japanese tournament, which we haven't really like seen any follow up to that or anything. They haven't really announced anything else. But I don't know. It's in my like kind of perspective that it would be very, very surprising to see them not push the game competitively a little bit and see what kind of involvement and kind of like a turnout that they could get from it.
Yeah, I would be. I agree with you. I'd be surprised if they don't do something official. The size of which it'll be, we've yet to see. I'm hopeful it's massive and they do a good job with it. But the potential is there. It seems like the game, as you said, from the ground up, was designed to be at least somewhat competitive. Um, One thing I'm curious about, and I don't know if this is at this point, I'm not even sure if it's intentional or not, but the spectate mode has a built-in scoreboard to allow you to see what the score of the game is. But we don't have that in game, and I'm not sure. I haven't really talked to a lot of other players and what their opinions are on it. I think it makes the game a little bit interesting having you track your own points, but I'm not sure if that's just like an oversight and there's something they're going to bring over to the game later, um, or if we're just going to have to get used to tracking our own points in games.
Yeah, there's
So we'll have to see that.
there's kind of an interesting case to be made for having and not having a scoreboard that I've kind of heard, and I can kind of agree with. For me personally, I think that having a scoreboard would objectively raise the skill ceiling of the game because it allows you to have enough information to make a strong choice, to make a decision about like how do we pursue this situation because we have pinpoint accuracy about what needs to be done in order to execute and close out a game. As for the flip side of that coin, it's like, not having a scoreboard is also its own skill ceiling in a sense, or its own, skill that needs to be trained and worked on because you have to know the notifications, you have to be paying attention to the certain time intervals, and you have to make decisions with the best accuracy that you can. So I think that it's from the spectator perspective, it makes a lot of sense that the scoreboard is there because, if you're watching the game, you don't want to be lost. From the player perspective, though, it is really interesting that you would have like a scoreboard in the spectator view, but not in the game. What do you think that you prefer?
Right now, I think we have an advantage because some of my teammates are really good at tracking the score. Our tank player, Zugrug, probably at any point in the game can tell us within like a 10 to 20 point margin of error what the score is, which is amazing.
That's crazy.
I don't think a lot of teams have that. But I don't think it's a skill that should necessarily be rewarded. I don't think I'd want a game where you're rewarded for being able to count the score properly. And other MOBAs have had mechanics like this before. Dota used to not show you the spawn boxes for neutral camps, which is really important to memorize them so you could accurately stack them and play around that mechanic. And eventually they just introduced that to the game. And at first the player base was kind of upset, saying that there's a skill that I had worked on. And I imagine similar things might happen in Unite, where people might complain that I got really good at counting the score. If you guys were going to add it, you should have just added it from the beginning, if they do choose to add it later on.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a healthy mechanic to exist in the game. I don't think people should be rewarded for how good they are at counting how many points are going in.
Do you feel like they're on the fence at Timmy Studios about it? Because like you have things like the scoreboard in the spectator mode, but you also had the scoreboard in like the release trailer for the game. Do you think that this is something that they're internally themselves like looking for data on, looking for feedback on, and then maybe we'll be trying to make a decision about it going forward?
I think so. What I dislike doing, even though my mind leads me to these types of conclusions, I have a feeling that it's possible that the intention of the scoreboard not existing has something to do with maintaining some level of positivity for players in a game, where they don't want like people to see, oh, we're 200 points behind, it's time to give up, because most games you can come back. It's a 10-minute game. Zapdos can influence the game in any way. So maybe they don't want a scoreboard in the game so people don't just prematurely give up. That's possible.
So, okay, I like that perspective. So let me ask you this much. What's your opinion on having the ability to surrender vote at the 5-minute mark in each game?
Honestly, I'd be much happier if they got rid of it. And if they really want to have a surrender feature, I'd put it at the 1 minute mark or something,
I
or just get rid of it.
completely agree. I've been on the advocacy of like, let's just get rid of it. Like, it's a 10-minute investment. You're playing, especially for ranked, maybe for standard, like whatever. I don't really care. I don't play standard anyways. But like, it's a 10-minute investment. It's meant to be a competitive game. This is a very losable game, a very throwable game, and also a very a game that you can make a big play in the end game. So for me personally, I would love to see it gone or changed to like the 1 minute mark. I think that's pretty appropriate.
Yeah, and I think right now, well, what I've noticed and what my after talking to some of my viewers and some of my friends is that mostly people are using the surrender feature as a way to communicate some form of toxicity to their team.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they don't always have the intention to surrender, but they want to, they want to have that feeling of just being negative. And I don't see the purpose of it.
Exactly.
Like you said, every
Yeah.
game is winnable, and I think they did a good job at balancing a 10-minute game that you can still snowball in and feel like your early game decisions are meaningful, but also you can come back and win the game at any point too.
All right, so I have to ask you, and I'm so sorry to do it because even I'm tired of being asked this personally. What's your opinion on Zapdos and how it currently operates?
If you asked me a month ago, I'd probably say we need to see some nerfs to Zapdos. It's probably too powerful. But the more we've played at the highest level, the less and less I feel that way. I feel like the game has so many different opportunities that you can use to play around Zap that in a lot of our tournament games, in some of our earlier sets nowadays in tournaments, we'll lose Zapdos and easily still win the game. We'll either walk past the enemy team and get a score off in the last second. We'll set up a lead so large that we can make Zap irrelevant. So I don't know how impactful or how important Zap still is to be nerfed. But, I think maybe for the health of the game, for newer players, maybe there's an argument to tone it down just a little bit.
So you pretty much nailed my opinion as well. Like really early on, I was like, wow, this is ridiculous, needs changes. And then the more I've played, I almost don't want them to change anything. I do have a thought, and then I'm going to ask you like a couple more things, and we'll wrap up. What would your opinion be if they say made it to where Zapdos doesn't die as fast? Like maybe gave it some more defenses, some more health. Do you think it coin flips too fast? Do you think that the way that it's operating is completely fine? Because that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of wouldn't mind seeing it die a little slower.
I think I agree with you. I think having some mechanic that makes it a little bit tankier would be probably healthy for the game.
Cool.
I think if I want them to make any objective tankier, it's probably Dreadnought. I think
What do you think about the XP from Dreadnought? Like, would you rather them see it be tankier, or would you rather like see them like drop the XP, the global XP down?
Either one is fine. I'm happier with them making it tankier, only so that the games don't feel as coin flippy. Like right now, what we'll notice some teams that might not be favored to normally win against our team, they're happy to just engage on a boss like Dreadnought and take the coin flip. And when I say coin flip, I mean maybe they're like 20-80 favored.
Yeah.
Because like 2 out of 10 games they might win the Dreadnought, and maybe 1 out of 10 of those games they might win the game off of it. So I think that kind of plays into the competitiveness of the game. But right now, honestly, the only thing I really want to see changed in the game is some minor Pokemon adjustments in terms of the balance there. I think the map itself is pretty well balanced, and I don't think the game is figured out at all. I mean, there's a couple of strategies we have in mind. We've tested them out on stream a little bit. They're kind of secret, but
Cool,
I think
cool.
I think the game can be played in so many different ways, and if we see this game not change for the next 6 months, outside of maybe some Lucario nerfs, people are going to figure out more strategies on how to optimize the map.
Cool. So I've got a couple of last questions and round up thoughts, and then we'll get out of here. So one, what is your opinion on like a pick and ban phase entering the game? When should it happen? Should it happen? Yeah, let me know. What are you thinking?
So right now, a little bit selfishly, but also the way I think the game works is not having a healer on your team makes the game play fundamentally different, and there's too much of an advantage to have a healer on either side of the team, and we only have 2 healers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if there was a ban system and a world where maybe Lucario doesn't exist in the way that it does, there's a possibility that either both healers get banned and you play a no healer game, or one team is able to leverage banning a healer to pick something overpowered. And I think the draft would just not be clean right now if we were banning Pokemon with only 2 Pokemon viable in that slot. If they had 3 even or 4 healers, I think we could have a pick and ban system. Maybe a couple more healers, a couple more viable tanks, increase the Pokemon pool a little bit. And I think a draft in this game would make it a lot more interesting because there's things like Slowbro, which, you'll look at a lot of competitive tier lists and it might be in like the B tier. But if there was a draft format, you'd see so many picks like Slowbro.
Yeah.
You might see some Crustles, might see more Mime,
I
might
think
see some
that
Wiggly.
I think that the game for me has yet to be really seen competitively as long as we're kind of existing in this blind pick phase, because you're not able to itemize for counter picks, you're not able to battle item pick for counter picks, you're not able to see 10 unique characters on the field, and that adds for a whole reason to change strategy, right? Like the game does get a little bit kind of it just feels like everybody's working parallel to each other. We're all doing similar-esque things, and I'm really excited for the potential for the game to kind of open up whenever just having 10 different characters kind of pulls the tier list up a little bit. It brings everybody up a little bit just because of the fact that you have to have 10 unique characters. All right, so last question, and then like I said, we'll get out of here. What would you rather see? Would you rather see the League of Legends approach to one map, or would you rather have the HOTS approach to having multiple competitive maps in Pokemon Unite?
Almost definitely multiple competitive maps. I think it benefits the game from a competitive level, gives you one extra thing that the top teams have to account for. It also introduces Pokemon that are powerful on some maps and weaker on other maps. So it might increase the diversity in what can be played. And I also think it's healthy for the community. Like people, I can sit here and play the same map 1,000 games in a row because I'm a competitive player and I have that kind of mindset. But not everyone in the more casual community enjoys the repetitive nature of that, right? So there's a rotation on maps. I think it'll keep the game fresh for newer players. I'm really, really, really hopeful that they take the HOTS approach. I wouldn't want to see them do anything else.
Yeah, I actually agree with you a lot. As a former HOTS player myself, I loved that about the game. And the cool thing about this game to me is that they've taken these little bits and pieces from other MOBAs and they've put it behind that 10-minute timer and they made it their own. So they could simply do the same thing with other maps. Like they can keep it behind that 10-minute timer, introduce unique mechanics, take us to some new locations in the Pokemon world, and bring in the new content that people want to see, bring in increase or raise the skill ceiling by forcing players and teams to understand multiple maps, but without having to overdo it in a way that other MOBAs would have done it, like HOTS, for example, where you have 15 maps. Maybe we just have like 3, and I don't know, maybe season to season they cycle one out and put one in, so something really, really interesting like that I think would not only be great for the game because it's just new content, but like you said, man, there's going to be some maps where, say, Mr. Mime is a 100% pick. Like you have to have him for that one objective, that one choke that you got to hold. And then, who knows, maybe on like the 3rd map they introduce, it's like, Mr. Mime's not so great here. So it could be really, really interesting for the meta, for the game, for the health of the game, the optics of how everybody wants to play and engage with the different, places and locations within the Pokemon universe. And even introducing some really, really cool kind of bosses like Zapdos, for example. So Indy, much love to you, man. Congratulations on hitting Twitch partner. So for anybody that hasn't checked out his live stream, the link will be in the description down below. Definitely go drop him a follow or give him a sub if you want to be a subscriber in his beautiful, wonderful stream. And yeah, man, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, thanks for having me on. Make sure you guys also check out my teammates. If you're in my stream and you do !team, all of them stream as well. So I'm always here to give the support perspective, but if anyone's interested in seeing other roles being played, I think my teammates are best in the world at what they do as well. And yeah, I'm excited to keep playing. I'm excited to see all the new content that comes out from you and other content creators. I think we've got a really nice, tight-knit community right now, and I'm excited to see it grow together.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, yeah, the links for the team will be in the description as well. As always, friends, thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to be kind to one another. Tell someone that you love them, and we'll see you on the next video.